Welcome, everyone. Nice to have all of you today, and I'd like to thank the panel members. My name is Todd Eviston, and I am a partner at CNR Research, and I'm responsible for all of our operations. I have been with CNR going on 25 years, and CNR itself has been in existence for over 60 years. And we have had the pleasure of working with the companies and the people that I'll be introducing you to now. And I'm really excited to do that. And first, I'd like to start with Lance Nichols, who is the project manager for UNICOM Intelligence, formerly known as IBM SPSS Data Collection and SPSS Dimension. And Lance, I think if we went back further than that, there would be quite a few other names along the line there too. But Lance has been involved with the intelligence product suite since its inception over 20 years ago, and starting as a software engineer and moving next to the role of lead architect and then becoming the project manager. And CNR has had the pleasure of working with Lance, as I mentioned, up until right now, currently helping with quite a few things with our own installation. Next, I'd like to introduce you all to Nigel Cartman. He's a seasoned professional in market research and analytics and technology, and he's driving the sales and business development of Q and Displayr across Europe and the UK. With experience in supporting global leaders like Nielsen, Ipsos, GfK, and YouGov, Nigel has a proven track record of aligning advanced data tools with the fast-paced demands of market research. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Laszlo Kiss, and he's a data collection specialist and survey technical director at DataExpert, bringing over 10 years of experience in survey programming and data collection, specializing in the use of UNICOM Intelligence and Survey2Go. They're adept at creating customized survey templates that meet diverse client needs. With a background in JavaScript and CSS, Laszlo excels in front-end development, tailoring survey designs for an enhanced user experience. And again, CNR has worked with Laszlo in all of those capacities, and we thank you for that. Lastly, I'd like to introduce you to Balázs Svidró. He's a visual analytics and graphic design specialist at DataExpert, specializing in data visualization. He holds a master's degree in graphic design and is proficient in R and Java, allowing him to develop innovative visualization solutions. His extensive experience includes using leading platforms such as Displayr. Balázs also excels in enhancing and optimizing data visualization projects with AI technologies. So, without further ado, I would like to once again ask Lance to say a few things and get started and let you take it from there.
All right, thank you. All right, so what I wanted to start with is, and if I go full screen, is to start with an introduction to the UNICOM Intelligence Web API. The Web API was released with the UNICOM Intelligence 7.5.1 release. And what it does is it provides a unified programmatic access to pretty much all of the server functionality. So that includes the access to case data or the respondent data, to the participants for those respondents, to the survey metadata, access to quota and the ability to update quota, to project properties, and to files. The API also allows you to generate any interviewing reports, field management reports, and to also export data. If I switch out of the presentation, there is documentation on how to get started, and I guess the key point here is getting started with authentication and authorization. So if I switch just real quick back to the presentation, the secure access to the API is available first through authentication into the API. There are two main mechanisms for doing that. The first is OpenID Connect. So this is an authorization flow where you have to provide your server credentials And then the second, probably easier authentication mechanism is API keys. Once you're authenticated with the API, then the user you effectively come in on is authorized for access to the web API. So if I switch quickly to user administration, you can see that all of the different endpoints that are available within the web API can be assigned to different users and roles. And within each of those endpoints, you can have fairly granular control over what functionality on that endpoint is available. So just looking at, as an example, to case data access or the respondent data access, I could assign respondent data access, at least at the API level, where the only thing you can do is read the data. Or conversely, I could be assigning access to delete, insert, and update the data via the API. There are kind of two ways to get started looking at the API, and I'm just going to change the size of that so I can grab the Swagger tab. The easiest way to get started with the web API is to use the Swagger UI interface that we deliver with the install. And this allows you to take a look through all the different endpoints that are available. So we have, if I start maybe with case data, and one key thing I need to do first when I'm experimenting with the API is to authorize. And one thing I didn't do, and I apologize, I'm just going to switch back and grab my API key. I don't have. We go through the other authorization mechanism, which is the OpenID Connect authorization mechanism. And I apologize, my machine restarted before the meeting. While it's doing that, I will just dive into some of the different things that are possible. First, if we look at, say, the case data queries, we can see that as examples, we can go in and run data model queries against the API. So here I would get to select the projects or the project that I want to query against. Similar to the features, the projects that users can access are also assigned through user administration. So this would depend on whether I have access to the project. So here I could provide the project that I want to access. And then through the power of the data model, I can be selecting either all of the data, or I could be going in there and actually selecting individual columns of data, adding where clauses, also using the data model queries. So here I might be wanting to just get the labels out, provide headings on the data that's returned. And then I can try the API endpoint out through the Swagger UI. I won't spend too much time here, but other things that are available as examples. First is if I go to export data, this allows you to pull all of the respondent data. And if I show you some of the filters, we can get specific projects, we can apply filters, and then we can assign what data format that we want to export as. And then the final one that I was going to mention very briefly is Quota. This is an endpoint that's used by a lot of customers for querying the quota targets and quota completes when, say, integrating with panel providers. So the use of the API to better service or better provide sample into a study. All right, that is everything I wanted to cover. Were there any questions?
I mean, I have a question related to the querying of the data. That I could see that we can query the V data, and is that the only view available, or we can query the hierarchical data, the H data as well?
Yeah, so anything that's possible via the UNICOM Intelligence data model can be queried via the query endpoint. So I could be querying H data, I could be querying specific levels within the study. And again, I can be using any of the data model functionality, so all the different data model functions, as well as the ability to uplive or downlive data between levels.
That's great. Thanks.
And it looks like we are getting a question. So I don't know if you gentlemen can see that, but question is there an endpoint to aggregate the respondent level data?
Again, you would be using the query endpoint. So via the data model queries, you can be running aggregate statements. So I could be doing a select. Let me maybe just switch back to here. And it could be as much as just saying, okay, I want to select the format question, but I'll also be doing a group by on region. This one doesn't have region. And then saying a sum of the amount spent. And so those kind of queries would provide aggregate level data. Also via the reporting endpoints, I can be calling up any pre-built tables reports via the API, and that would be returning tables XML via JSON to provide aggregate level table results.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. Laszlo, sir. So from CNR's point of view, you know, when in the early 2000s, when sort of there was a shift in our industry from sort of traditional data collection in terms of phone rooms and mall intercepts and, you know, even door-to-door kinds of data collection, and we're moving to internet data collection. You know, we did a lot of vetting of available platforms and, you know, basically brought all of our operations, you know, in-house to manage. And so as we were vetting different platforms, you know, I'm sure in your role with DataExpert, you do similar kinds of things. And so my first question to you would be, in your opinion, what do you think are the key advantages of using UNICOM Intelligence over other software platforms in terms of specifically scalability, customization, and integration capabilities for complex survey projects? All questions that we asked ourselves during the decision-making process, but I'd be really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think, I mean, Unicom is harder to grasp if you are just trying to like tell that what it is, because it's not like, I mean, my understanding is, and I think how I would like to grasp this, it is like a programming language. It comes with the hardship of you have to learn it. You need to learn how to code, how it works, but it gives you the flexibility and the freedom of doing basically anything that could be achieved like with any other programming language. And if you sort of handle it as a programming language, then like keeping the code clean and efficient, that gives you a lot of opportunity to basically handle complex surveys in a very easy way, like managing, like scaling up like complex projects. When we are talking about like global projects, you know, multiple countries and so on, it's really easy to, you know, if you do the coding right, then it's really easy to handle like the additions of new markets and, you know, anything like that. And also what also comes back, basically being as a sort of backend programming language, that obviously it has a front end where you fill out the survey, and because basically we can even tell that how the HTML should be generated out. That gives us a lot of flexibility in using JavaScript in order to basically achieve anything that could be done in, you know, like on a regular website, but with also collecting data and basically we could use any external APIs, which also opens a lot of things to, to achieve some of the things that might be really complex or maybe even impossible to achieve in some of the other other survey tools. It's easy to do there. I mean, you have to have the knowledge. I mean, that's a must, but it's basically that. And also that's why this web API is, I think, is a great opportunity to even widen this kind of approach, because now you have all this stuff available for you in a professional web API way, which you can use to build into your, to other process flows, workflows, or any other outside system that you previously would have needed to like set up an ETL to load the data there. Now you can achieve the same thing with the web API. So that's my take on why it is a great platform.
Excellent. And specifically, why do you think why is the use of MS SQL in UNICOM Intelligence an advantage for survey data management? And how does it enhance the capabilities such as creating custom views and running SQL queries to streamline data retrieval and reporting?
Yeah, I mean, as you could see from Lance's introduction regarding the web API, it was like a SQL query, and that's how you can treat the data by querying it. SQL is a very common programming language to query data, so it is easier to to get to know if you are just starting from scratch, and that gives you a really good understanding of how the data is being like stored. And obviously MS SQL gives the data a robust, scalable way, and basically an efficient way to store the data. And with that, we can create custom views. That's why I asked, especially for the age data, because in some of the cases, it might make sense to like, to not look at the data from the respondent level perspective, like what vData gives us, but actually on a more hierarchical way, like, we can easily group the respondents by, respondent groups, respondent types, or markets, and so on. And with that, it just makes more, in some of the cases, it makes more sense to like check the data that way, to see what's going on, how the survey is working, how respondents are actually filling the survey out. And with that, with this SQL approach to the data, it's also easy to integrate into the data into other systems, and that's why I think it's a great and easier way of understanding. And also it's not like a black box that you don't know how your data is being stored. You are in full control of that if you are using UNICOM Intelligence, and that also makes it not the easiest way to do something like this, but certainly gives you the most flexibility, the most basically the best way to incorporate your data into your other process flows, workflows, or the client's needs, because it's just it's not some sort of like specific language that like this survey tool uses only and nothing else. It's more common.
Yeah, and that's what we found as well. And and speaking of which, can you talk a little bit more about UNICOM Intelligence API and how it can connect with data with Displayr specifically, and how this integration enhances the real-time data visualization and reporting?
Yeah, I think that's why this web API is really great, because it gave the opportunity to Displayr that they could build this connector, which we tried it out with Balázs, and it's basically it was even more straightforward than we anticipated, because we basically just had to use the API key as Lance showed us, and basically the host for the server where the data should be queried out from, and we basically pulled the data in Displayr in like, I don't know, it was a minute or something, and it was just like Balázs's first time using that functionality, because I just sit down next to him and we used it, and so we were like surprised that okay, so that's it. Oh, so now we can build a dashboard, and basically that's the whole point, which can be a really flexible opportunity I mean, a wide opportunity to find use cases for this
Right.
kind of connection, because you can think about like fieldwork monitoring purposes, but you can also think about like getting ahead or basically a jump start on the dashboard building, because even while the fieldwork is ongoing, you can already start building a full dashboard, and that basically gives you the opportunity to be able to finish a full dashboard even by the time when, which has been also like confirmed by the client, by the time when the fieldwork ends. And that's something which is quite great.
Yeah. As a company that has taken advantage of those, and exactly what you're describing, it has been very useful for us. And speaking of Displayr, Nigel, sir, love for you to weigh in a little bit from your point of view as we've been talking about all these integrations and how we can leverage your platform in this way.
Great. Thanks for that, Todd. Yes, so as has been mentioned, UNICOM has been working with Displayr, UNICOM Intelligence, to create this seamless connection, and so that the data can seamlessly move from UNICOM Intelligence to Displayr. Displayr has a few key points which really we work with. It is a full statistical tool, and you can do things like brand mapping, segmentation, driver analysis. The advanced analytics is a very popular part of Displayr. One of the other key aspects is it allows collaboration on projects, and that is you're able to work on a project together. So you can go in and you're able to literally work on the project together. If it's building a dashboard, for instance, and the dashboards themselves are very popular, someone can actually be designing the dashboard while someone else is actually doing the data work behind it. The reporting of it, and one key part of the integration, is that it allows scheduled updates. And as Laszlo mentioned, it means that you can actually build a dashboard or build a PowerPoint report, begin your analysis in Displayr, and then you can have it feed in directly. The PowerPoint reproduction, automated PowerPointing, and the dashboarding are huge parts of it, the reporting itself, but we encourage people not to forget it has at its heart a statistical tool, which is very powerful. A few things that were mentioned, a few things I'd like to talk about: innovative designs, superior data quality, insightful analytics, and actionable insights. Those are not our words. Todd and may recognize those as actually belonging to CNR. And you probably thought I was stealing those, didn't you, Todd?
That's a way.
But that reflects the vision of Displayr in terms of making those things work, and that's really where we choose to play, is providing people with innovation and the ability to create insightful analytics which they can share with people. I was going to focus on a couple of those points if I could. I was going to look at a bit at dashboards and a bit at text analytics, which are two things that we're working on quite strongly at the moment and which are quite exciting. Now, dashboards, as I say, we do need to remind people, because dashboards have become so popular through Displayr that many people define us by dashboards, but we do as much analytics as we do reporting. Our dashboards are very popular and it continues to grow, and the real focus and power of dashboarding comes from a few key points. Of course, it's the possibility for people to self-serve from data, which is what really drives the popularity of dashboards. And as a result, they can get results faster. In that sense, it's a win for both the provider of the data and the people accessing it. And of course, they can be engaging. You can get people to pay attention to data where they otherwise would not. And for the data provider, there's also the important point in that they can control what is being accessed. They can apply appropriate filters, and they're able to shape the data for the narrative for which the data is intended to serve. And with Displayr, we've done our best to make sure that they're easy to produce and that they're fairly low code required in terms of the production of your dashboard. Dashboards can be quite straightforward. This is almost of a PowerPoint type production where you can scroll through items much as you would with a PowerPoint. But of course, really what defines a dashboard is that possibility to interact with it. I say dashboards are engaging, and I can attest to that because this is a conjoint simulator, which where you're able to choose different aspects of restaurants and see how these all change in terms of the total preference share. I guess this reflects one of the intentions that we have at Displayr, which is we want people to be able to access data and to use it to self-serve, to understand the implications of changing aspects, in this case, of restaurants. But it's using a very complex calculation from conjoint to come up with the final result. And I said this was engaging, and I can confirm it's engaging because this was my 7-year-old daughter's favorite toy for at least 6 months. And it meant many times I did not get a chance to get to my laptop because my 7-year-old daughter was playing with a conjoint simulator and building her favorite restaurant.
Future market researcher, Nigel.
She could well be. The other sorts of dashboards, and all of these dashboards have one thing in common. They're completely different from each other. But another form of dashboard, which is very divisive, I must say, I get more people pointing at this style of dashboard and saying, no, 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 no. But I get a large number of people saying, yes, 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 yes. And really, it's that ability to provide people the possibility to be able to shape a dashboard according to their needs is a large part of what we're aiming for. This one is more like an infographic, and you're able to change the perspective. It's on campgrounds. I'm sitting in London at the moment, and camping seems a very distant idea from where I am. But you can change the campground, and you can see the satisfaction scores which respond on the page. And this one has hidden filters. So the whole idea of dashboards remains very popular, and the ability to be able to create those, and with the integration, the ability for data to be sucked into it. And as I say, to be able to update those dynamically, to schedule updates so that you can see the data change. Some might even call that exciting, particularly if you're waiting for the results to come in, and to be able to see the indicators change on the page just gives people a whole lot more engagement with the data. The other key aspect I wanted to talk about, and one which is very important to Displayr, is text analytics. And this is changing a lot. It's the feature within Displayr which has probably changed the most over the last 6 months. And of course, the reason it's changed so much is because of the introduction of AI. And within Displayr, the text analytics uses AI to help you with the coding. Now, I was going to show you briefly how that works. Here is some responses given by Americans on their perceptions of France. And I have shown this to some people in France, and they've been horrified at some of them, including the one that says GFD, GFD. But these are their perceptions of traveling to France. Now, with the AI capabilities within Displayr, what you're able to do is you're able to create the categories that you want by using Displayr AI. It says it's going to create 10, and it creates 10 just like that. Okay, so it creates the categories for you, and then you're able to modify those if you want. If you don't want some of those there, you can simply right-click on one of these, and you can say, delete that. And if you wanted to explore another topic, you can right-click on it, and you can add a theme, and we can call this one, for instance, arrogant, which was mentioned a couple of times by these particular respondents. You can then ask Displayr to classify the data, and it goes away and it puts all of those codes, all of those individual responses into the codes that you see. Okay, so it's taken the responses and it's put them all into those categories, and then you're able to save that to your raw data and then treat it as coded results or treat it as quantitative data. Historically, there's been attempts to deal with text data with things like word clouds and word maps. Often that involves simplifying the data too much, simplifying the text. And we believe that treating it as quantitative data, being able to quantify it, then pull it into a tool like Displayr is really a better way of approaching it. And it's just so superior, the quality of the classifications, and that it really makes it quite a powerful way of being able to work with open-ended responses. Another possibility with this, of course, is you're able to code this. You're able to go in and you're able to assess it. So where it talks about French food, you're able to go in and see those things that are being classified as food, and you're able to take things out or move them around and work with them in that way. Okay, so it's not abandoning all thought to AI. It uses that idea, that horrible phrase to, what's it called? Trust and verify, I think was the proverb which was used. But it's the ability to allow AI to work with you. And it's really a collaboration between AI and humans that we're looking at the moment. And that's one of the possibilities which has come through strongly with text analytics. Great. So are there any questions about that?
You know, as you were showing those dashboards, you know, I couldn't help but think of CNR's own application of these tools. You know, we've had, as a custom research organization that we are, we've had the need to create exactly kind of what you're showing, where you've got this very sort of aesthetic visualization, but we needed real-time and complex programming. So the only combination we could come up with was this exact workflow between UNICOM and then, you know, your sort of Displayr front end. But what I would also like to point out from like a client point of view is, you know, the difference, at least for CNR, is the fact that we've got the underlying ability to do data processing in sort of a traditional sense as well. You know, you've got there are a lot of data visualization tools out there, but, you know, sometimes you don't have the ability to go in and actually process the data so that you can display what you're looking to display. And as you showed all those complex filters and like that, you know, and with UNICOM as being the source, it's really been an incredibly flexible set of tools for CNR.
Yes.
So
Thanks, Todd.
yeah, and I'd like to turn now to Balázs and ask you a couple of questions with your experience. And what are the largest challenges when it comes to maintaining, like some of the dashboards that we're seeing when it comes to maintaining like a large tracker, you know, with a lot of data in the dashboards? Are there things you need to consider when feeding some of those things?
Oh yes, of course. Thank you for the question. And with every dashboard and every dashboard's maintenance, maintenance starts with building. And I think it's very important to mention that how the dashboard is built is key, how it will survive the months and the quarters and years as the newer and more data are pulled into the dashboard's data structure. So first of all, it has to be built in a way that it can eat a lot of data. Now, But when it comes to actual challenges, when it comes to maintenance, is the first thing is when it's a large data set, usually it's a syndicated project. So multiple countries, multiple categories, global surveys and studies. There is no way there are no changes, maybe monthly. So first of all, the way that one of the largest challenges is that how do you handle these changes? So that's why, for example, a direct connection with UNICOM makes it easier to handle these changes because the data is coded by somebody who also takes into account that it is pulled into Displayr. Therefore, the changes and maintaining these changes are much easier. Also, there's a aspect of as the data grows, how the speed will get slower or won't get slower. There could be cases where the dashboard's background structure has to be changed due to the slow speed so that it is still usable for the users. That is one of the challenges as well. Of course, it is handled individually by dashboard. So there is no quite perfect recipe for it. And basically, the key takeaway here is that maintaining a large data set with a dashboard is much easier when you have a direct connection to the surveying tool where the data collection happens exactly. And if you have direct control over both sides, the bottlenecks can be much less painful, let's just say that.
True, they can. Thank you. So let me continue. And speaking of sort of the technical stuff, what technical considerations are essential when designing a scalable display or dashboard that integrates seamlessly with the survey data? If you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yes. So first of all, when we talk about Displayr has a great tool which is called a data preparation document. And what Displayr allows us is that you have the pulled in data from the survey tool. Now, once you have that data in front of you, all the variables, all the helping variables for coding the survey. Now, when it comes to evaluating the data, oftentimes you don't need all of that. So what data preparation document allows in Displayr is that you basically create your own version of those data that you put into your real dashboard. And there's basically a virtual connection between these two platforms, two projects, let's just say that. On one project, you have the pulled in survey data directly, and then you have the data that you work with. And this other data that you work with doesn't contain the variables anywhere that you don't need. So this is one of the first biggest steps, I think, when it comes to considering this. Then obviously you can help this process by programming the survey in a way that it has as less unnecessary variables as possible. And that also helps with the speed, obviously. Now, Displayr has a lot of built-in functions, lots of modules that you can use for your visualizations and, of course, for your evaluations of data analytics, for example, as Nigel mentioned, lots of analytics within Displayr. However, what you have to know is that oftentimes within Displayr, these are not just black boxes that you put your inputs in and then an output comes out. You can directly see the R code and you can modify that R code, customize it for yourself. So you don't have to create your own special calculation that you put into your data and you get the results from. You can actually modify the built-in modules. Thirdly, you can create your own R outputs and R variables within Displayr. This is also enhances the possibilities to make it as compact as possible and everything happens within one system, and that helps with the speed.
As again, I sound like a broken record to some extent, but the R integration was the only way we could accomplish some of the more complex things for the reasons that you mentioned. And it has been extremely powerful and allowed us again to meet the sort of custom needs, since CNR doesn't have black box solutions. That's why this flexibility is required for us to serve our own clients. So thank you for pointing that out about the complexity that can be achieved using the R code. So I think with that, we are pretty much right on time. We haven't had any additional questions come in. I think they have been asked and answered. And if there's any closing statements from anybody, otherwise, again, is sort of a client of all of yours, and we have worked with you for years, and I can attest to these things. So I was very happy to participate in this, and thank you all and your organizations for helping to contribute to our ongoing success by leveraging these tools and keeping up the development. And really exciting, Nigel, to hear some of the new elements that'll be rolling out in the coming months, and I'm sure we'll look forward to taking advantage of those as well. So with that, I thank you, gentlemen, very much. And, depending on what hour it is in your part of the world, thank you for joining us. And thank you for the audience members who are participating in this. And if any questions or anything arise, please feel free to send something along, and we'll get back to you.